Hey, everybody. This is Joe Dini here of the Psychedelic Laundromat YouTube channel, coming to you on a Saturday with some Saturday solo show. It's been a while since I've done these. It's been a very hectic past 2 months. July, I was traveling a lot. I was in California, I was in Virginia. And then I had to get ready for work about 2 weeks ago. So I had to give myself a little time off just to prepare myself mentally. Plus, I got a new mattress. So I'm sleeping better, which gives me a lot more energy to do these weekend shows because beforehand, it was very tiring trying to just catch up on rest. So since the DNC officially ended on Thursday, which is the Democratic National Convention, we've had both of our conventions, the Republican and the Democrat. Both of them are officially done. And now we focus on the race coming up. So that means that in November, we start voting around, I want to say the 8th. Is it the 8th this year? It is the 5th, actually. The 5th is when we're voting. So we have about 2 months or so in between them to start forecasting what's going to happen in this upcoming election. And the reason why I'm doing a show tonight is because 538, which is one of the biggest sources for forecasting these presidential elections, came out with their election forecast for this election cycle. They usually try to do these after the conventions are done. And they did this last year with 2020. They predicted that Joe Biden was going to beat Donald Trump. And now, since Joe Biden has dropped out, we now have a Harris and Trump scenario playing out in this 2024 election. A lot of things have changed since July 21st, which is the day when Biden dropped out. It was on a Sunday. Kamala Harris accepted the nomination and then picked Tim Walz as her vice presidential candidate. And that also means that they're going to be going up against Trump, who also picked J.D. Vance to be his presidential vice presidential candidate. And you've been seeing a lot of the memes lately of J.D. Vance fucking couches or obsessed with dolphins. And it's just been a very interesting and weird time, to say the least. So we're going to take a look at this election forecast that's going on. And then also what I'm going to do is we're going to actually have a blank map of the electoral map that does the Electoral College. And that what we're going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how this is all going to play out and where the electoral votes would be if what is being shown in this 538 forecast ultimately comes true. So let's go through it and I will show you exactly what they say, and then you'll get to see for yourself how it's all going to be mapped out. So right here, who is favored to win the 2024 presidential election? So we got Harris wins 58 times out of 100 in our simulations. Trump wins 41 times out of 100. That is a less than 100% chance of no electoral college winner. They did over 1,000 simulations. That's more than usually what I do. 270 to win has a simulation thing that you can do on your own. I try to only usually do 10 because 10 is all the energy that I can muster. But everybody else, 538's doing 1,000. 270 to win does 25,000 simulations. And they predicted about a 50% chance that Harris was going to win. But out of this 1,000, you could already see a 58% chance that Harris will pick up the election and become the first ever woman to become president. So let's scroll down a little bit. So here are some likely outcomes that you can see right here. Now, in the middle is where it would be if it was a tie. Now, we have no indication that there's going to be a tie at any point during this thing, but you'll take a look. As it gets darker in color, you'll start to see that it goes more towards the particular candidates. And as you can see,
Trump here has a less likely chance of getting a win.
A landslide is about 350 electoral votes or more. And you could tell there's only about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then when you come over here to Harris, you got about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So we're already getting into the 20s with this. So right away, you could see that Harris has more of a chance to get pretty much God, I'm already forgetting on the word already. It's slipped my mind. A landslide. That's what it is. She has more likely chance to get a landslide than Trump does. And just the margins of her getting the most electoral votes is also bigger than Trump's. Trump has less chances of getting to those particular points. And the biggest one is that Trump gets about 309 electoral votes, and then Harris gets 324. Those are the most likely chances for each candidate if they were going to win. If there's a no winner, there's only about a 0.0% chance or 4 that there's no winner here. So that's interesting. We got about 582 simulations, 414 simulations of both of them winning. So they probably rounded it out, and that's what we came up with here. So as we scroll down, we got the national polls, and you'll see pollster ratings, and usually I would say that YouGov is probably the most likely chance of being correct, because YouGov has always been, I don't know what it is. YouGov has always just seemed to be the best poll to go off of. Now you'll see red right here. This means it's Republican funded. So this is a very partisan poll. And we're not going to show any more polls than this. But take a look at all the net results here. RMG Research has a 2-point lead for Harris. Outward Intelligence, 6-point lead. The Bullfinch Group, 8-point lead. Farley Dickinson University, 7-point lead. YouGov, 3-point lead. This is the most popular of the ones. So this is still a very close race. SoCal Strategies, even them, a partisan group, has Harris winning by 2 points. Morning Consult, 4 points. Big Village, 4 points. YouGov again, 2 points. Reinfeld and Wilton Strategies, Harris only winning by 1 point. So YouGov is right here, 3 points and 2 points. So it's leaning towards Harris. It's not a slam dunk by any means. I don't want to try to get anybody's hopes up if they're hoping for Harris to win. It is still pretty close. I mean, 58% is not a slam dunk. In order for that to happen, it would have to be as close to 70 or 80%. And if I remember last election cycle, Biden had about a 60 to 65% chance, if my memory is correct. So she's got less likely chances of winning, but that obviously could change as we get into September and October, because we still got 3 different presidential debates and we still got a vice presidential debate. And Trump has agreed to appear at least in the first one. And Harris has already said, if Trump's not going to show up, then I'm going to show up regardless, and I will just do a solo thing and then just have people see me up there talking about stuff. That was before Trump decided, you know what, I'm not doing good in the polls. I got to at least try to give myself some chance. But Trump has not been campaigning since the assassination attempt on him. He's not been able to go to any arenas that are inside, because since the 2020 election, he has not paid those arenas in full. So they said, well, why would we want you to come back if you haven't paid us? So he's at a very big disadvantage when it comes to doing rallies. The last one he did was in Montana, which is a safe state for him. It's not a state that Harris has any chance of picking up. And that made everybody scratch their heads. Well, is this a fundraiser? Is this just to be around his selected people or selected voters? What is this all about? So we have obviously no idea. He's not even going to most of the battleground states. He had J.D. Vance going around following Kamala Harris everywhere she went, and not doing very successfully, I might add. He's just coming off as very weird. Trump, I think, was in Pennsylvania, and so is JD Vance. They went to a sub shop, but they're going there. And the assassination attempt, I believe, happened in Pennsylvania, but it was an outdoor thing. So, I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen as time goes on? I'll have to try to see if there's like a map that shows exactly where they've gone in terms of fundraising and doing rallies. But I know that Harris and Walz have been going to all the battleground states. So the battleground states this time around are Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, and Arizona. So 7 battleground states. And you'll see the map pretty closely when we get towards that. But those are the 7 states that I'm going to be looking out for. I am going to be doing a live stream when we get to election night. Circus said she's going to join me on that. We did it 4 years ago, and we had to stop the stream because they haven't declared a winner. It took about another 2 days before they picked Joe Biden to be the winner. And that was about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday, if memory serves. But I don't think that we're going to have that this time around, considering that it was during a pandemic and everybody was at home. Everybody was either voting through voter ballots, like early ballots and stuff. And you're going to be seeing, I think, a lot more people going out on election day voting. And I believe we're going to see a result on the same night. Again, polls close at around 8 o'clock on the East Coast. And I think that we're going to have a result by 11 o'clock at night, maybe midnight. So who knows? And they might just say, listen, we're not there yet. And it's just going to be something else. But I just want to let you know I will be there for that. So latest updates. So let me take a look at this. 538 is excited to unveil a forecast for Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Our forecast starts with a slight lead for Harris, reflecting her current edge in polls, but uncertainty about how the rest of the election can impact the state of the race. With about 74 days to go, because they did this yesterday, we think anything from a clear Trump victory to a clear Harris win is possible, while a close win either way is most likely. Yeah, from what I understand, they're not projecting a landslide in this particular instance. A landslide, like I said, is 350 electoral votes or more. The last president to do that was Barack Obama in 2008. Landslide beat John McCain. That was my first ever election year voting, and we haven't had that since. He didn't barely, but Obama beat Mitt Romney in 2012, but it was not by a landslide. Trump didn't beat Hillary Clinton by a landslide, and neither did Joe Biden beat Trump by a landslide. So they're not predicting it around this time either. So don't get your hopes up for that. It's going to probably be a lot closer than people think. Despite the close contest, Harris's expected performance in the polls is much better than Biden's was a month ago. Yeah, you have to remember, when Biden was still in the race, Trump looked like it was going to be a Trump landslide because people with the Palestinian Gaza genocide that's going on right now, a lot of voters were turned off by Biden seemingly siding with the Zionists and actually proclaiming to be a Zionist in front of the entire country. That turned off a lot of voters. There were also voters that didn't like the fact that he was aging, and then it was like he had early stages of dementia. They were losing faith in him as a president. So they decided that a lot of people thought that they were going to sit this out. They were begging for another candidate. They were begging for somebody else. And then sure enough, he drops out on July 21st, and in comes Kamala Harris as vice president to take over the reins. And since then, everybody's been excited about Kamala Harris. She's been picking up a lot of steam since late July going into this with the DNC. She had a pretty strong DNC speech, which was geared more towards the moderates and geared more towards people that are in the middle, the centrists. It was very median voter-esque speech. People on the fringes, like on the left and the right, I mean, the right just hates Kamala Harris, but the left has been pretty disappointed with Harris in terms of making sure that they stop giving arms to Israel and stuff, which she has made no proclamations for. There's hope that an arms embargo was going to happen. They didn't get that in the speech, so we'll see how that turns out. But as of right now, the favorability for Kamala has been going up. And since she picked Tim Walz to be her VP, Walz has had a pretty good favorability rating ever since he got selected to be the vice president. Kamala's has only been going up since, I mean, I think it's still unfavorably by about a point or 2 points, but it's been going up steadily ever since. And she did a lot of things. Her margin has improved not only in the northern battlegrounds, which was already comparatively friendly to Democrats, but the diverse Sun Belt states too. So what they're talking about is the Midwestern states. Michigan, Wisconsin, those are battleground states. Pennsylvania is also in that area, very Midwestern, but those are usually the battleground states up in the north. The Sun Belt is Nevada and Arizona. And so she's been gaining ground in a lot of those states since she's become the candidate. There, Harrison's gains with Black, Latino, and young voters can prove decisive if she retains her strength in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin and locks Trump out of Georgia or Nevada. His path to winning the majority of electoral college votes will be completely cut off. Still, there's a long way to go until November. Our model hedges against uncertainty in the polls with a forecast based on historical election returns. Yet there, too, the race is uncertain, with our fundamentals assigning a 50-50 chance to both candidates. Folks, we got ourselves a race. 538's forecast is based on a combination of polls and campaign quote-unquote fundamentals, such as economic conditions, state partisanship, and incumbency. It's not meant to quote-unquote call a winner, but rather to give you a sense of how likely each candidate is to win. Okay, so that's just one of the reasons why I like it. They make predictions, they make forecasts on it, but it's not, what's the word? It's not determined, so to speak. So like I said, don't get your hopes up on if you think 58% chance is good. Yes, but that's still 8 points away from being a 50-50 race. And if you don't, and I don't think most people want to be in a flip a coin scenario. So let's take a look at how the forecast has changed. So let's start here. This was July 26th. This was about 5 days after Biden had dropped out and Harris was going to be the nominee. So Trump still had a lead among Harris, but take a look at this. As we keep going through July, we keep going into August, you start to see that Trump is losing electoral votes and Harris is gaining. You'll start to see now she's getting ever so closer. And then right about August 8th is when Harris picks the lead and has been having this lead since. And you'll start to see Trump keeps losing electoral votes and Harris just keeps adding more and more to her resume. Eventually, where we get to 287 for Harris and 251 for Trump. So that's about 36 electoral votes more than Trump for Harris. It's a little bit lower than what we had for Biden in the 2020. He got about 306 electoral votes by the end of the election. So this would be still a close race in that regard. Now, you can't always rely on polls. Polls don't have a clear answer on who it is because a lot of polls still rely on people that use landline phones. They don't usually go to people that have cell phones or people that just use different devices like iPads and stuff. It's going to be interesting because people got the polls on the midterms 2 years ago wrong. It was a lot less likely that a red wave was going to happen once the results started coming in, but people thought it was going to be a complete red wave. The House and the Senate were going to go all to the Republicans, and they only picked up a few seats in the House to give them a majority, but they didn't get a majority in the Senate. It was still 50-50 with the vice president, which is Kamala Harris, ruling over the Senate and being that one voice to be like the 51st vote, so to speak. And then Biden obviously had the executive branch, so it was still a Democrat-led government. But obviously now with the polls, it's leaning towards Harris, and she's picked up most battleground states, and you'll see the map later. But it doesn't look like we can rely on those fully because we have no idea what young voters are going to be doing. We have no idea what people of color voters are going to be doing. We don't know if there's going to be any turnout at all. All of it is unpredictable. but we can kind of get a sense of where everything is going. So right now, 287 is the most likely chance. Let's take a look at the popular vote. So in the beginning already, Harris had a lead on the popular vote, and it really has gone up by about 1.3%. So she still got the 50% popular vote, but the popular vote means nothing because they rely on the Electoral College. Now, this Electoral College thing in a lot of people's minds needs to go because it's not an accurate representation of the majority of the people. I mean, Hillary Clinton and Al Gore won the popular vote in 2000 and 2016, respectfully, and they lost in the Electoral College. So the popular vote doesn't mean anything. But there's voters out there that do want that to happen. So let's take a look. At the beginning, Harris only had a 47% chance of winning. Trump had a 53% chance. But as we go to about August 8th, once again, Harris picked up the lead, and now she's all the way at 58%. So it's been about 3 weeks since Harris has had the lead over Trump in terms of percentages. All right, now let's take a look at this big map right here. These are exactly what's going to happen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch over to my screen here, and I am going to change into 270 to win so that you can see exactly how I'm going to be doing this. So I got a blank map right here. I'm going to have a blank map on electoral night so you can follow along with me. And let me change the color palettes so that you can see exactly how it's going to be leaning. It's going to be a toss-up. So let me just add the tilting so that you can see. Okay. So we got a blank map here. So let's try to fill out this map, and we'll use 538's election forecast just so that you get an idea. Now, the colors that you see on the right-hand side of your screen right here, the top colors are the safe states. These are the states that either Harris or Trump are going to win no matter what. Even if the polls change by just a few points, it's still going to be safe for them. Likely means that it's not safe, but it's got a very strong chance of being picked up by either one of these candidates. Leans means that it's kind of going in their favor, but there might be a chance because of the margin of error. It might just go into an even slate, or it could go over to the other side. And tilt is just very close to toss-up. Toss-up is pretty much what we have right here. It's just a gray area. Tilt is like, oh, it's just slightly going this way, or it's slightly going that way, but not by much. So that's what we're going to be focusing on here. So let's try to do these in, let's just start from the West Coast and then go to the East Coast. We'll do it JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 7 Steel Ball Run style. How about that? Yeah? All right, awesome. So let's take a look. Let's go to Washington first. So Washington is a likely state that's going to go to Harris right here. Oregon is also a likely state that's going to go to Harris. We have our first safe state in California. This has the most electoral votes out of any state in the country. So right now, Harris has 74 electoral votes in the Pacific Northwest. Let's go over to Idaho. This is a safe space. I mean, you could say it's a safe space either way, but this is a safe state for Trump. Now we're going to go to Nevada. This is the first of the battleground states that we're going to be keeping our eyes on here. Now, it's a toss-up, so we have no idea where this is going to go. But right now, it's tilting towards Harris's favor by about 55%. So we're going to give the tilt over to Harris. Now, Arizona, it's a 54% chance that Harris picks up Arizona, but it's still tilted. It's not 60% or more, so we can't say that it's a leaning state. Now, we're going to go over to Utah. Utah is a safe state for Trump. No surprise there. Let's go over to Montana. That is a likely, it used to be a safe state for Trump, but now it's likely to go over to him. Not safe for him at all, considering that John Tester is also a Democrat that's been gaining traction over there for a while. Wyoming, safe state for Trump. No surprise there. We got a likely for Colorado for Harris. And then let's go over to New Mexico. We have a likely over there for Harris as well. Texas. Now, this is a very surprising thing. Texas is leaning towards Trump. You have to understand something. Texas used to be a very solid red state, but over the years, we're starting to see that Texas is just ever becoming more and more Democratic. When this is terrible for Republicans, because this used to always be a safe state for them. And this time it has, since the census, it gives them 40 electoral votes. This was huge for Republicans to gain traction in this state. It used to be safe. Now it's leaning, and people are very surprised by this. You're starting to see a lot more Democratic voters popping up in Texas, but there's still a Republican hold there. They still have a Republican governor. They still have Republican state senators and state house members. But every single year, every single election cycle, it just keeps starting to lose some of its red and tilt more blue. Ever very slowly. But there's people that are hoping that Texas goes blue. For instance, I don't know when the last time. I think probably, maybe Lyndon Johnson or FDR. One of those two presidents, I think, got Texas blue. It's been a while, but it's most likely not going to go to Kamala this year, but it might change in the future. Oklahoma goes to Trump. We got a likely case of Kansas going to Trump. Now, it used to be a safe state, but since the abortion ban started happening and since Roe v. Wade got overturned, we've been starting to see a lot more Democratic voters in Kansas voting against abortion bans. We saw this a couple of years ago in the midterms, and you're starting to see a change in Kansas as well, but still likely going to Trump. Now, Nebraska is interesting. Nebraska is separated by 4 different categories. There's the state, which has 2 electoral votes. Then there's the 1st district, which has 1. The 2nd and 3rd district each have 1. There's 3 different districts in Nebraska on top of the state level. So let's take a look at what happens here in Nebraska. So Nebraska has a very solid chance, a safe chance of going to Trump. Now let's take care of each of these districts that we got here. The 1st district is likely to go to Trump. Now the 2nd district has been more Democratic, and it's leaning towards Harris. Biden won this district in 2020, and it's leaning towards Harris. And then we got the 3rd district in Nebraska, and that's a safe district for Trump. There's no way that Harris picks up that. So Harris only picks up 1 district, and that's just 1 electoral vote compared to Trump, which has 4 electoral votes for him. Now let's go to South Dakota. South Dakota is a safe space for Trump. So is North Dakota. The Dakotas are Trump country. There's no way that they're going to pick up staying in the Dakotas. Now let's go to Minnesota. Minnesota is a likely place for Harris. So right now, let's do an update. 117 for Harris, 80 for Trump. Now you need to get to 270 in order to win, hence the website 270 to win. You need that amount in order to win the election. This is the Electoral College, which is a flawed system. Like I was saying, people want the popular vote to be instituted instead of the Electoral College, because the Electoral College, sometimes the president doesn't even have to be the most popular. They just have to get the most Electoral College votes. And it's been used a lot of times to try to keep Republicans in power, which can be undemocratic in a lot of people's minds. All right, Iowa, likely state going to Iowa. Iowa, a likely state going to Trump, not safe for him. Minnesota, same deal, likely going to Trump, but not safe. A lot of these states you'll start seeing right here in some of the Midwestern states, it's likely instead of safe. So they're leaning blue a little bit, but not by much. Arkansas, totally a safe state for Trump. I keep saying safe space, but it might as well be a safe space for some of these people. But Arkansas is a safe state for Trump. Let's go to Louisiana. Louisiana is, I want to say it's going to be likely. that that's the case. I'm going to say likely. It's not a safe state for Trump. It's going to likely go to him now. Now let's move up to Wisconsin here. Now it's leaning towards Harris. And by the way, the Republican National Convention took place in Wisconsin, and already Harris has a slight lead over there. So it's pretty embarrassing. You do your convention over there, and the opponent is kicking your ass there for the time being. Now, let's go to Illinois. Illinois is a likely state for Harris to win. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that for Indiana. It's a likely place. That's where they just had the Democratic National Convention, and they're most likely going to win that state by a lot. Kentucky, it's a safe state for Trump. This is where my co-host Circus lives, and my co-host Mooney lives over here, and Sylph lives around over here, and I'm way down here in Florida. So we're kind of in this east area right here. All right, so we got Tennessee. Tennessee is a safe state for Trump. And now let's move on to Mississippi. Mississippi is a likely state. And Alabama, oh, good old Alabama. Goddamn. That's a safe state for Trump. So, quick update. Harris is only leading by 2 electoral votes, 146. Trump has 144 as we keep going. Let's do Michigan. Michigan is leaning towards Harris. So we got a 161 right here. Let's do Indiana. Indiana is likely for Trump. Ohio is likely for Trump. This is the first time Trump is taking a lead. Let's move down to Florida. Let's just work our way up here. Now, this is interesting right here. I never thought I would say this because the past 2 election cycles, Trump has been getting a lead in Florida. And the races have been showing that Trump has actually been losing steam in Florida, which is totally shocking me. So I'm thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? Is it going to keep leaning towards Harris or not? But as of right now, Trump has Florida, which I'm not surprised by. I still think he might win this, but we have abortion on the docket, and we also have legal weed on the docket this year. And Biden was actually supposed to win Florida last year. The polls had him in favor of winning Florida, but it went to Trump. But right now, it is leaning towards Trump. I say leaning because he's been losing a lot of points, and Harris has been gaining in Florida, and they haven't really been campaigning down in Florida. I have been seeing a lot more Trump is weird billboards than regular Trump billboards, which is pissing off Trump because he lives about 30 minutes away from where I live in Mar-a-Lago. I don't live in Mar-a-Lago. He lives in Mar-a-Lago. 30 minutes away from me. I live further up north than him, but I'm still pretty close. But I can tell you the billboards that I see there are pretty much leaning towards Trump, but you're still seeing a lot of billboards that are calling Trump out, and they're funny. They're basically making fun of the fact of how old he is and that he's weird and that JD Vance is weird. So every time I see that on the highway, I get a chuckle. But I live more south, and the more north you go, it gets more southern. The more south you go, the more progressive it gets. Georgia is a state that is tilting towards Trump, but it's a battleground state. So we're dealing with something here that might go to Trump's favor. Plus, you have some people in the state Senate that are trying to rig the election towards Trump right now. And they might not certify the results if Harris wins there. So it's going to be up in the air. We got South Carolina. That's likely going to Trump. So right now he's got 227. Let's go to North Carolina. North Carolina is a battleground state, but it's still tilting towards Trump right now. He's got 243. Let's go over to Virginia. That's a likely state for Harris to win. Let's go over to West Virginia. West Virginia, that is a solid state for Trump. Now we're going up into the Northeast. And this is where things start dramatically changing for Trump because he does not win anything in the Northeast, anywhere in New England, except the 2nd district in Maine. He's likely to win that, but everything else goes to Harris. So let's take a look. DC, The District of Columbia, that's a safe place for Trump. I mean, it's for Harris, sorry. Let's do Maryland. That's also a safe state for Harris. Let's move on to Delaware. That is a likely place for Harris to win. That's also the state where Joe Biden is from. New Jersey. Let's go to New Jersey. We got a likely chance of Harris winning New Jersey. Now, let's go over to Connecticut. Connecticut is a safe state for Harris to win. Now we got Rhode Island. Rhode Island is also a safe state for Harris. Now let's go over to Massachusetts, also a safe state for Harris. Now, Pennsylvania, the final battleground state, that is tilting more towards Harris. Now, as of this moment, the 7 battleground states are all taken. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Harris has 5 battleground states to Trump's 2, North Carolina and Georgia. Harris got Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, and Arizona. So in this situation, Harris wins the election, but let's just fill out this map still. Now, New York is a safe state for Harris. And as you see right here, 273 to 248, Harris automatically wins. Now, let's finish it up here. Vermont, safe place for Harris. New Hampshire is a likely state for Harris. And now finally, Maine, like Nebraska, has 2 districts and a state. So 2 electoral votes for the state of Maine, and then District 1 has 1, and then Trump obviously got the second one. So likely that Harris picks up the first district, and likely that she picks up Maine. So here we go. Oh, hold on. Mean to do it like this. There we go. That's much better. Oh, sorry. Let me do it like that. Okay, so we have our final. Oh, and we didn't do Alaska and Hawaii. Sorry. Let me go down here. Let me see. Okay, likely picks up Alaska, and I believe Hawaii is a safe state for Harris. That I don't think is changing at all. So let's go here. So final results, so to speak, on this map. 287 for Harris, 251 for Trump. Electorally, if the election were today, based on 538's election forecast, Harris would win with this amount of electoral votes. Not as good as Biden was 4 years ago, and it's not a landslide. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing more safe states for Harris than Trump. Trump has only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 safe states. Whereas Harris has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9. She has 9, and she has a lot more likely states leaning towards her. Well, she has more likely states than Trump does. Trump is leaning in more states than Harris is. Now, leaning is very close, and there's a lot more tilts to Trump than there are Harris. Or actually, no, I take that back. Sorry. Harris has a lot more states tilting towards her than Trump does, but Trump has more states leaning towards him than Harris does leaning towards her. So you're starting to see a change in this map where it's looking like a lot of these leaning states that used to be very safe space for Republicans are now leaning the other direction. And they haven't changed fully yet, but you're starting to see a change in the way that people are starting to vote. So if the election were today, Harris would win. Now, let me go back and see exactly what we had here in terms of what they predicted. And it is exactly how they predicted it in the 538 predictions, which is perfect. So you saw on the map, it was 287, Harris, 251, Trump. It's exactly the same thing. And we have the map right here, which I just demonstrated on 270 to win. And it's the same exact results. Now let's go. What are the closest races? Here we go. So we have our 7 battleground states right here. Now, North Carolina is the closest. And we have our tipping points. There's a 10.3%. The VPI, I don't know what that is. Vote share. That's just the graph. But right now, it's tilting towards Trump. Georgia's also tilting towards Trump. But as you start seeing with the other battleground states, Arizona's tilting towards Harris. Nevada is likely to go to, or is leaning towards Harris. Pennsylvania is leaning towards Harris. So is Wisconsin and Michigan. So only 2 battleground states go to Trump and 5 are leaning towards Harris. You're starting to see 4 points. This now means it's leaning in Florida. Texas is also likely. And all of these states right here are starting to get more towards the safer places. And as you go further down, you'll know that the District of Columbia is probably the most safest space that Democrats have. And the Democrats' 3rd district is the safest district or electoral vote for Trump to pick up. Now, let's move on to what does the path to 270 look like? So this is a snake chart, and it orders the states by forecasted margin of victory. So if you zoom out, you could see this is exactly what the thing looks like. And you'll start to see, like, as the further you go left, you'll see DC is in the corner over here and Wyoming is over here. And you'll start to see the battleground states right here. We got 7 of them right here. And this is what it's most likely going to be. These 7 states, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the ones that we're going to be paying close attention to during the election. And I'll be keeping everybody up to date. I'll probably be doing updates as well throughout the course of September and October, and then finally do a final forecast at the final day before the election, because that's going to be extremely important. All right, well, let's go over to how the popular vote translates into electoral vote. So if Harris wins the election and the popular vote, this was Biden in 2020. Harris right here has a lot of situations where she wins by getting the Electoral College and the popular vote. Now, there's only a few instances where Trump wins the election, but Harris wins the popular vote. There's a lot more chances that happens than Harris winning the Electoral College, but Trump getting the popular vote. And there's most likely, and the second most likely chance was Trump gets the Electoral College and the majority of the popular vote, but not as much as Harris does. Harris has more of a chance to win the Electoral College and the popular vote right here. So what do the polls or fundamentals alone say? Okay, now this is interesting. So the polling averages, the Democrats have a 3.6 point lead in the polling average. If you adjust it based on the results of state polls and the effects of party conventions, it bumps up to 4.4 points. So that's the Democrats have a 4-point lead in the polling average. Now, this was the exact same polling average that happened in 2016 with Hillary Clinton having this point of margin, 4-point margin lead over Trump, and Trump still won. So don't get your hopes up with anything that's being presented here. Or you could still be hopeful at the same time because it might be accurate. Forecast the polling average on election day. The adjusted polling average with uncertainty intervals that account for a potential movement in the race between now and election day. So Democrats still have a 4-point lead. Fundamentals, Democrats only have a 2.8 lead. The full forecast, if we're taking a look at everything that they've done here, Democrats have a 3.8 average so far. So right now, it is still very close for Harris to pick up the win, but this could still go either way. The margin of error, I believe, is 3 to 4% nationally. So this is still anybody's ball game. So unusual and not so unusual scenarios. Only 25% chance of Harris getting a landslide. Trump would only have a 7% chance. Harris wins the Electoral College. Trump has more of a likely chance to win the Electoral College, not in a landslide, by 33%. Harris only has 32%. So they're neck and neck pretty much. Harris wins the popular vote. That's 70%. Trump wins. That's 30%. So it's most likely Harris is going to get more votes than anybody, and it's just the Electoral College. Harris wins the majority of the national popular vote. That's 46%. Trump has no chance. Harris has more of a 50-50 chance. Harris wins the national popular vote by 10 percentage points. It doesn't look likely for both of these candidates. Harris wins the popular vote but loses the electoral college. Very small chance that happens. And then Trump barely has no chance of winning the popular vote. And yeah, Harris has no chance of winning the electoral college if Trump gets the popular vote. No candidate wins a majority of electoral college votes. Not likely to happen. Every state votes for the same candidate that it did in 2020. That's not happening. So don't expect the same electoral map that we got last election cycle. Election is decided by a recount. Very unlikely to happen. Election is decided by a smaller margin than the vote share for third-party candidates. Kind of. Not. It's under 50%, so I would say no. Harris leans at least one state that Biden didn't win in 2020. That's 59%. So there's a chance that she picks up a state that Biden didn't get last election cycle. And Trump obviously is probably going to win a state that he did win in 2020. So both candidates are most likely going to take states from each other. And okay, so that's everything that we have here in terms of the election forecast. So overall, Democrats are in the lead. Harris is in the lead. She's been gaining traction ever since that she got the nomination and picking Tim Walz as her vice presidential candidate. And now that the conventions are over, the candidates can now start focusing on the debates, on fundraising, on going and advertising on television, on the internet. And there's chances that they're going to be doing rallies. The Harris campaign has been going all across the battleground states trying to gain voters. Trump, the last time I saw him doing a public rally was in Montana, which is already a likely state that's going to him. So it's very interesting that he's doing that. And he's just been doing press conferences either at Mar-a-Lago or he's been going to some other places and just being interviewed by reporters. Hasn't really done a rally in a long time. I haven't really seen anything where they've been trying to get Republicans to go to the DNC. And if they do, it's just basically all the losers that are in Trump's circle that are doing it. And they're getting owned by, Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. He was arguing against the 12-year-old. And the 12-year-old was like, oh, so you're just going by your vibes. That's it. You're just going like trust me, bro. And just completely decimated Mike Lindell and his entire philosophy. And I think this 12-year-old too is actually a YouTube streamer, if I'm not mistaken, or a Twitch streamer. And that was something else. They weren't able to get any traction, the Republicans did, when they did the RNC. It didn't do well for them in the polls. It did the reverse. It did damage to them. It was not a good convention in terms of results. The assassination attempt, usually something like that would give a bump to a candidate in the polls, but it didn't do that for Trump. Nobody cared that he almost died. Not even people at his own base cared that he died, or cared that he was about to die, or that he was shot at. It didn't do anything for him. Even when Biden was still in the race, it wasn't big enough points-wise. Harris has been gaining traction in the past month just by energy alone. The vibes have been great for her. The energy has been great for her. Voters are ecstatic about this. Now, whether that translates into the actual election, we'll find out. But people are trying to compare it to Obama in 2008 and how there was a lot of energy. And that was an election that Obama won in a landslide against John McCain. John McCain had no chance, and he had Sarah Palin as his vice presidential candidate. Trump has J.D. Vance, and Vance is a lot worse than Sarah Palin was. Imagine that. People did not like Sarah Palin. She was the butt of all the jokes. They even made a porn parody of her. And even Tina Fey said to the adult film actress that played her, you know a lot more about politics than Sarah Palin does, which made everybody laugh in the room. Sarah Palin actually met the person who did a parody of, no, not Sarah Palin. Tina Fey met the film actress that did the Sarah Palin parody, who I think also did a parody of Tina Fey as well. And she loved her. But here, J.D. Vance is being accused of fucking couches, looking up like dolphin sex with women, and doing all this stuff with like the jizz in the jars and Republican voters wearing them around their necks. And it's just been, and his favorability is so down. Everybody hates him. And Trump has not been able to avoid the weirdness of being on an Elon Musk interview, on Twitter Spaces, and everyone's just like, what the heck is going on here? This is so weird. And they've been trying so hard to beat these weird allegations, and Republicans really have had no answer going after Harris. They haven't really got her on any policies. They just been focusing on like, oh, hey, she's like the Hawk Tuah version of politicians. And they're making fun of her because like she has stepkids and not any biological kids, which doesn't land. That actually resonates more with voters because a lot of parents have stepchildren. And, Tim Walz had to do in vitro fertilization because him and his wife couldn't have kids biologically. So they had to do IVF, and that's how they got their kids. And they're trying to make fun of him for that. But like, no, that's relatable. They haven't been really able to hit on anything on either of these two. They even tried to go after Tim Walz's record when he was a part of the National Guard. He quit 2 months or 2 weeks before. 2 weeks before he was deployed to the Iraq War because they wanted to get some of the National Guard people over to the Iraq War. And he was retiring. He had been in the National Guard for 24 years. He was going to start becoming a politician at that point or a teacher or something like that. And they try to hammer it's like, oh, look at this guy's record. This was a strategy that worked against John Kerry in 2004 when he was running against Bush. They were able to take his record and make it a weakness for John Kerry. And that's how George Bush won the election in 2004. But this time around, it's not working because people are starting to realize, oh, wait, you're going after a guy's record for what purpose? It didn't land. So they're not doing a good job of being able to convince people to come over to the Republican side. The only reason why Trump is going to get so many electoral votes is because of how conservative the voting base is in a lot of states. Regardless of Trump, they're always going to vote for a Republican. They're Republicans in like full bore. You've seen a lot of those southern states be leaning towards Trump. It's very, very leaning towards a conservative movement, a very racist movement, a very, let's just say it, misogynist movement, and very white supremacist. So there's a reason why those states are always going to go for them, regardless of who the Republican candidate is. But you're seeing changes in states that used to be safe red, but now they're leaning more towards blue. They may not have gotten there yet, but they're getting there ever so slightly. And so there might be changes coming in the future. There's definitely going to be changes in the future, but you're going to start seeing a shift in the way people vote. And whether it's like small increment changes or if it's just an automatic, just complete shift, we're going to have to wait and see on that front. But that's pretty much it for the forecast. We have our first debate on September 10th. If I'm lucky, I'll try to do a live stream of that. Maybe I could try to make it so that I can watch the live stream on there, because I remember they used to get all so hurt. I think whether it was like one of the major news sources used to get very upset at streamers who used to just have live streams where they would just like stream the entire thing and they're like, no, don't do that and stuff. And I think nowadays, like PBS NewsHour, I don't believe has any problems with them doing that. But this is an ABC News debate that they're going to be doing. So it's all going to be run by Disney, the first debate. And that's on September 10th. So that's in about, let me check the calendar really quick. That is in about 3 weeks. It's on a Tuesday, believe it or not. Tuesday night, September 10th. We're going to be having a debate between Harris and Trump. And let me try to see exactly what the debate schedules are going to be like now that we're in this particular situation here. I'm going to look up presidential debate schedule. Let's take a look here. Okay, Wikipedia. Let's take a look. Sorry, everybody. All right, so we got September 10th, ABC News. Okay, and it doesn't look like we have any news yet on if there's going to be any more. It looks like they've crossed out. Oh, they canceled the debates after September 10th. So it looks like we only have one debate so far scheduled, September 10th, and then the vice presidential one, which takes place on October 1st, and that's between Tim Walz and JD Vance. That is going to be on October 1st, like I said, which is a Tuesday in New York City on CBS News. So the presidential debate is going to take place in Philadelphia, which is a swing state, and Harris has been gaining traction there. The vice presidential debate is going to take place in New York. Now, whether or not there's going to be any further ones is going to be up in the air. It's all going to depend on what these candidates are going to say. I have no idea what's going to happen. And it's going to be, because they've been talking about trying to get some third-party candidates as well, but they not qualified. We had like Jill Stein and Cornel West, and who's the other one? Chase Oliver. Yeah, none of those guys have met the polling criterion, and they haven't been invited. And RFK Jr. just dropped out of the race and is most likely going to support Trump. But I don't know how much that's going to affect the race, because with RFK staying in it, it was going to take a lot more votes from Trump than he was Harris. So there was this fear that RFK Jr. was actually going to help Trump lose. So the RFK Jr. campaign said, we got to drop out and we got to endorse Trump, because I think that's the best likely chance that we can up our chances in the polls. And then RFK Jr. said, listen, if I endorse you, you'll have to give me a cabinet position. I want to be in charge of like the health department or something like that, or the environmental stuff. And I don't know how much that's going to do it. Most people look at RFK Jr. as a loser anyway. I mean, his bear roadkill story that he shared with Roseanne Barr, who's also a real piece of work, she looked at him bug-eyed and like, what the fuck is this story that you're telling, dude? And RFK just made himself look so weird in front of people. And I was like, why would you be a president at this stage? You're giving the Kennedy name a very bad name already. And considering the amount of trauma he's been through and the amount of just damage that he's done to his own mind is astounding. All right. I don't really have anything else, so I'm going to try to go for about another 2 minutes or so before I have to go, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to try to do another forecast if they make any updates, or when it gets around to September around this time, maybe I'll do an end of September forecast, and we'll try to catch everybody up on how it's been since a month has gone by, and then I'll do it for October, and then every day going into the election, we will do a forecast then. We'll definitely do a forecast the day before the election, November 4th, and then the 5th will be the live stream that I think Circus said she'll join me, where I just have the map up and I just give like updates as to everything that's going on. I know that there's people here that are going to be wondering what the election results are going to be, and it's just going to be a very close race. It's just going to be one of those races where you don't know what's going to happen. Everybody's excited right now for Harris. That everything seems to be going Harris's way right now. She had a very strong DNC performance. We haven't seen the bump that conventions usually bring, and conventions are important. We saw what happened when it did it with Trump. It did not help him. It actually hurt him. We'll see what happens with Harris, whether it helps or hurts her. We'll have to see the polling when it starts coming out even more and more. So with all that being said, I am going to end the show now. If you want to see more updates, hit that bell, the notification bell, so you know that when we do live streams. On Wednesday, I do our regular podcast with the co-hosts. Fridays are our gaming nights, and then Saturdays are my solo shows. And I'll try to see what the solo show is going to be like for whatever fits my fancy, because it's really what I want to do. And I will try to see if I can fit more streams during the week. I mean, since I've been getting a lot more sleep, I've been being more energized, but I also have to take into account what work brings. So don't forget to like the video, because that helps the algorithm. Subscribe, because the more subscriptions, the more that helps the algorithm. Leave a comment if you haven't so already, because that helps the algorithm as well, helps boost the channel. And I'll catch you all next time for more election coverage. And good night, everybody. Enjoy your weekend, and I will see you later. Peace, everyone.